Alright, so today we're going to be going over some of the advanced features of the Canon Rebel T8i. This video is designed for those who already have a basic understanding of how a Canon Rebel works. If you're new to using a Canon Rebel, then make sure you check out part 1 of this 2-video review of the Canon Rebel T8i. So the first part we're going to cover today is the mode dial. And as you can see, right now it's an automatic mode, but that's definitely not what we'll be covering today, because automatic mode, in my opinion, is for beginners. Okay, so up first is scene, otherwise known as SCN. So I'm going to keep it on scene. I'm going to turn it on. So I'm going to click choose scene. And now a whole menu pops up. The flower is for close-ups of small objects. Next, it looks like somebody running. So the idea here would be that the runner stays in focus. Alright, next we have, looks like a little kid. For shooting kids in motion, continuous shooting with subject kept in focus. Okay, don't have any idea why they'd have a kid versus an adult. Seems like the same thing to me, but they have both. Alright, so the claim is this button will make food look great. Let's test that one out. This is with the food scene button, and this is without. With and without. Hold on a minute, I think someone took a bite out of my bread. Hey Coco, do you have any idea who might have taken a bite out of my bread? Was that you? That probably was you, wasn't it? Okay, so we also have Candlelight. And let me show you something. All these settings can be adjusted. Watch this. I'm doing that by turning the dial at the top. I'm talking about this one right here. So that dial just changed the color tone from red to blue, but what if you wanted to change the brightness? This is the button you need to choose. The manual refers to this as the quick control button. So I'm going to hit the quick control button over and over. Now I'll hit the dial to change the brightness. Quick control, dial. So we're changing the color tone and the brightness. So let's go to a different scene. We have night portrait, which they recommend a tripod. I always recommend a tripod unless you have no choice. Next we have handheld night scene. So it takes 4 consecutive shots. But again, they're recommending a flash if you have a subject. And now some of you might have really good flashes and you like flashes. I usually don't like the way it makes things look. I try to avoid them, but if you have the right kind of gear, it could be useful. Okay, so next we have backlight control, which I'm extremely excited to try out. I don't know why, but I find myself in this situation like all the time where my dog's reading a book by a window. Then we have portrait. Next we have smooth skin. And then a group photo with people in focus. Hey guys, could you stay still just for a second? Okay, so now it's time to get back to the mode dial, and you see those 2 circles right there? That's where we're going to be focusing next. Okay, so let's look at the filters. I hit choose filter. You have grainy, black and white. Soft focus. Fisheye. Water painting. Toy camera, miniature effect, art, and art vivid. Okay, next is manual mode, which I think is the most important setting. Okay, I'm going to press the ISO button. Just pressed it, turning the dial. Watch the queen, watch carefully. Lighter and lighter. Now you can't even see her. I go back down. Now she's too dark. And I'm sure you already know, but in case you wanted to brush up on your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO, I'm just going to go over it real quick. Okay, so the general rule with ISO, the lower the number, the better the image is going to be. So if you're outside on a sunny day, you're going to want the lowest ISO you can get, and you're going to get stunning images. When the ISO gets really high, that's when the images start to get kind of grainy. So you may ask, why do you want a high ISO number than ever? Well, I'm going to take this T8i outside at night and show you, because the high ISO will help you out in extremely low light situations. Like I said, it can become grainy, but sometimes you're just trying to get that shot that you want. Okay, now I want to talk about shutter speed. I'm going to hit Q, and now the shutter is highlighted. That night shot I just took, I had the shutter over here at 30 seconds. Now, if you want to do something fast, like you could set it over here. So to the right, say you're shooting a baseball game in the sunlight, the guy slides into second base and you want it frozen in time, then you want this faster shutter speed. Okay, now I want to talk about the line in the middle. I'm going to hit Q, and see how it says f5.6, f32. The only way I can describe this to you is imagine your human eye. The only light that comes in is what your eyelid allows in. Now if you start to squint and your eyelid starts to close, it allows less light to come in. That's why when you're driving and you see the sun in your eyes, you start to squint naturally. Your eye is doing the same thing as this middle line. And last is the bottom line, which we already went over. That's the ISO. Okay, so here's where things get a little bit complicated. You have these three settings. Everything that happens to one affects the other two, and vice versa. So you change the ISO, it affects what you can do with the other two. All three of these are constantly moving back and forth and balancing themselves out. Let me just say, with practice, you start to learn the relationship between the three and how they work together. The best way to simplify all of this, let me zoom out and show you. You just hit the live view button, which is right here. Watch what happens. Okay, so we have a problem, but we can adjust the dial right here. We can move it back and forth. There we go. Now it's getting better. There you go. Anyways, the whole point of this is when you're in live view, you learn on the fly. I'm old enough to remember in the old days we had film, and you found out when you got developed that it was all screwed up. But with the live mode nowadays, you can just on the fly learn. So just make sure when you're in manual mode, you pay attention to all these values, and you'll start to learn the relationships between them. Okay, so the last three I'm just going to go through real quick. You have AV, TV, and P. Okay, so first we have AV, which is aperture priority, and adjust the level of background blur. That's pretty simple. I think the Rebel does a good job describing that one. Let's go to the next one. TV, shutter priority, customize how moving subjects look, and the waterfall pretty much shows you what that does. And last we have P. P stands for program, and you can have darker, standard, or brighter photos. Gives you a little bit more control than full auto. One of the last things I want to talk about is autofocus and manual focus. This can be extremely useful with videos. Anytime I'm shooting a video, I always start in autofocus, I lock my subject in, and then I switch to manual focus. Let me show you real quick why that's so important. Alright, so here I have it on autofocus. You can see the Queen's face perfectly. Now let's say that I have to put my hand in there for some reason, so I'm going to do that. Let's just say I'm trying to readjust her or something like that. Did you see how she got blurry there real quick? That's a real problem with videos. That's why you go autofocus and then switch into manual focus. So watch what happens now. Okay, I got autofocus on. She's locked in. I'm switching right now to manual focus. What happens is she stays in focus. And that's real important. Like if you ever watch my mechanical videos, I have to do that, because if I don't do that, like I'm trying to show a bolt or something like that, and it gets blurry, it ruins the entire shot. That is why that's so important. Next we have the display button, and it just turns the LCD on and off. Now with the flash, if you want, you can just manually open it. Just like that. So next we have the dioptric adjustment knob. So this knob has to do with the viewfinder. So if you look through your viewfinder right here and it's blurry, then you got to turn this dial. When you put your eye up to the viewfinder here, you're looking through glass. So imagine when you're looking through your viewfinder, it's the same thing as wearing a pair of eyeglasses. This knob allows you to adjust your prescription, if that makes sense, to make the images clear again. Okay, next we have the info button right there. Let's go with AV priority and hit OK. Alright, now if you hit the info button, see what happens? It turns it off. And then it shows you this thing, which, you know, tells you if you're level or not. So that's the first thing it does. But the other thing the info does, which I find more significant, is when you switch it to live mode. Live mode, I'm going to press the info button. And as you can see, the more you press it, the more information you get, including this level, which is pretty neat. It's showing white balance. It's basically showing you all the settings, but that might be distracting to you, so you can just hit info again, and it's all gone. Okay, so now I'm going to press the focal button a bunch of times and just show you what happens. See the owl? I'm just going to keep pressing it, and it just changes the focal area. So in a previous video I told you that this is just up, down, left, right, but it also, WB does your white balance, to the right is autofocus, to the left is whether you want to do multiple shots or a timer so the camera will take its own picture automatically after, 10 seconds. The bottom is what they call the picture style button or down arrow. First off, with these buttons, they don't work if you're in auto mode. So if you're over here, and you're in auto, the green part, this is not gonna do anything. But once you switch over to like TV mode, then you turn on your live view here, and then you can press these buttons and they start to do something. If you've ever wondered why they're not working, that's why. Okay, so here's how you use the white balance button. First, I'm going to turn this to AV mode. I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to hit the WB button. Alright, so when you press the white balance button, it starts out with auto, daylight, shade, cloudy, tungsten, which is green, white fluorescent, flash, custom, or color temperature, which can be yellowish or more white. Now the autofocus button, which is on the right here, I'm going to press that. You can do one shot, AI focus, or AI servo. One shot is when your subject matter is still. AI servo is when your subject matter is moving and the camera locks on the moving target. AI focus, the camera goes back and forth between the two automatically. Keep in mind with one shot, when you go to press the trigger to take a shot, you press down about halfway, and that's when you hear the beep and it locks in. Okay, so next is your timer. You may be wondering, why is my timer not do anything? You could go to live mode and you hit your timer and it doesn't do anything. You have to be in one of the manual modes like program, TV, AV, manual. Now when you go to live view and hit timer, there it is. Now you can control that. So with the timer you have single shot, multiple high speed shots, low speed multiple shots, a timer, which is great if you want to take a family photo and be in the picture. A 2-second timer is good if you have a tripod and you're concerned with camera shake. Then over here you can change your timer to whatever you want. Last, we're going into picture mode here. Now again, it won't work if you just press it. You have to go into live mode, then press picture mode down here. For picture mode, I'm going to show you examples, that way you can see for yourself what it does. But we start out in auto, standard, portrait, landscape, fine detail, neutral, faithful, monochrome, and then user settings, which we're not going to do. Next we have the autofocus button, AF, and what you do, you hit live mode and then you just press AF, and it's the same thing as just pushing the trigger halfway down. It just locks the autofocus on. What's interesting is if you put it in automatic mode, you can't do it. Automatic mode really disables a lot of features. Also, your speaker's right there for playback. It has a remote control terminal, a digital terminal, an HDMI out, and an HDMI mini out terminal. And it has a microphone, external microphone input terminal. So when you hit the menu button, let me show you what happens. Okay, for the menu, there's so many different things. I'm just going to go over as quick as we can. Image quality, you can go from RAW to JPEG. You can make a lower quality image so that you can have more storage space or data transfer. You have your aspect ratio, which is just like a TV, and you can, obviously change that. Now, review duration, you can change that. How long playback is. You can release the shutter without the card. You can have lens aberration correction. And this gets crazy. Look at that. You can do illumination correction, distortion correction, lens optimizer, flash control, flash firing, E-TTL 2 meter. So you can do eval, average. That's pretty complicated, but that makes more sense if you have an external. And then you have red eye reduction, which you can turn off and on. You have slow sync. So you can change that setting. You can change your built-in flash settings right there. So you can do, built-in or shutter sync, or you can do EXP comp. Your external, this will not work because I don't have it hooked up, but if you have an external flash, you can change the settings in there. Okay, Expo comp, I'll show you that. So you can change that, dark to light. ISO speed, you can change that. It's whatever you want. You can have a max for auto, you can change that. Okay. Auto lighting, you have to turn this check mark off by hitting the info button. And then you can start to see what it does. Low, standard, or high. I'm going to keep mine right here. Highlight tone priority. You can do the D plus or D plus 2. Metering mode. So if you have your meter, you can work on that. You can have a metering timer, which you can change. White balance. So we can change all that, which we already went over. Custom white balance. That's my dog. So that's a picture I just took and you can change it right now. But I do that in Final Cut. This is a crazy one. Look at that. You can change the different color tones, color space. So you can do Adobe or sRGB. Picture style. We already went over that, so I'm not going to do that again. Long exposure noise reduction. Okay, high ISO speed NR. So you can put anti-flicker on, which will help with lighting, like fluorescent light flicker. Now if you enable it, you can have some shutter speed issues. I guess I'll leave that off for now. Okay, and then lens electronic MF you can disable after one shot or enable after one shot. Autofocused assist beam firing, and you definitely want that. Let's go back to menu. Okay, playback settings. Let's do that next. Start at the beginning. So you can protect images. You can select them, just like I have here. You can select a range. That's pretty neat. All images. That's really nice. You can unprotect all of them. All images on card. And let's see, you can unprotect all images. Let's go to 2. Creative filters. You can change them right there. You can change the raw image processing. So you can do creative assist. Quick control. So you can change that. We already did red eye. You can create an album, which is pretty neat. And then we have playback. You can do cropping. Look at that. I mean, we can go in there and hit set. And then we can change that, which is That's pretty intense. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll do that in Final Cut Pro. You can resize it right here. A lot of this stuff you could do in Final Cut, but you can do your own rating, slideshow. So you can create your own searchable criteria. Image jump. Jump 10 images. That's crazy. Then you can do your display brightness. You can, well, that's actually more advanced. Look at that. Autofocus point. Autofocus point you can disable or enable. View from last scene. I like that because you can see what you just played. HDR, look at that, you can turn that off and on. Okay, time for the next part. Next is Wi-Fi, so you can set that up. Look at that, it syncs up to the remote and your different devices. Airplane mode, off and on, Wi-Fi settings. There you can actually hook up to your home Wi-Fi. You can auto send images. Bluetooth settings, pretty simple, straightforward. So you can access Bluetooth on your phone. You can have a nickname in the camera wireless communication. You can change it. Cancel that. I'm not ready to do that right now. So there's your GPS device settings if you have that. Look at that. I don't have one. What do we got here? Clear wireless. Restore default wireless. I like that. How about I'll do that right now. There we go. We can next go to function settings. So you can select the folder, create a folder. The file numbering can be changed. You know, I don't know why you would change that, but you can. So you can change your auto rotate setting. You can format your card, which I don't want to do. Auto power off. This is a big one. I like to change that. It's on 10 seconds when you first get it, and it turns off the whole time you're trying to work. So I'd change that right away. Display brightness, screen on off. So choose if the screen turns off when you press the shutter button halfway. So you can keep that on. Date time zone, which is in my first video. You can change your language. Okay, video system, NTSC or PAL. Touch control, can change that. I like the beep. Battery info, I like that, shows you that. Sensor cleaning, I like the auto cleaning. 4. Viewfinder display, electronic level hide, grid display, or flicker detection. Info display, you can turn that on and off. And here you can switch. You can just change these two buttons. AFPT selection magnify, AE lock reduce index. You can do auto resolution or locking in at 1080p. And there's your multi-function lock right there. You can change between the three. Touch control, quick control dial or main dial. Now you can do custom functions for exposure, exposure level increments, clear settings. I'm going to do that because who knows what I messed up, right? Clear all camera settings. Okay. So that puts you back to default. There's your copyright. You can put your copyright info in. Your manual software URL. You can take your smartphone and scan and get some help online. And there's a certification logo display. Tells you all you want to know. There's your firmware and your lens. So you can update. And that's that. Okay, so last we have display level settings. Shooting screen guided or standard. Menu display. Guided standard. Mode guide, enable, disable. feature guide, enable, disable. And that is it. We finally went over everything, didn't we? Alright.